So thank you very much for taking the time to join the webinar today. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm just going to make sure that kind of everything is working as it should do. Great to see so many of you here. So I'm just going to put hi everyone. I'm just going to put hi everyone in the chat, and if you can just respond to let me know it's all working appropriately, that would be much appreciated. Great, yeah, great to see so many of you here. This is, I don't know what sort of number webinar this is, or how many of these we've done, but one thing which is, definitely consistent is the rising numbers of people who are joining. Sorry, I've just realised my video's off. Of the rising numbers of people who are attending these sessions. I think the first one we did was about 3 years ago, where we had 2 or 3 people on, and we're consistently, getting over 100, 200 attendees for a lot of those from architecture, engineering, or construction, but then also other sectors as well. So we're going to talk about the changing role of email in a post-pandemic world. Thank you for everyone for letting me know the chat's working. That's much appreciated. And I'll be joined by my co-presenter, Tom Easy, who's a member of the commercial team here at Mail Manager. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Jacob. Pleasure to be here.
So in terms of what we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about why email has become increasingly important since the start of the pandemic, and we've done some research to sort of support that, both a document and email management survey as well as a broader kind of industry survey, which probably in total has over about 1,000 respondents from kind of different sectors, but business leaders. So we'll be talking through that. We'll be talking through the challenges of managing and accessing critical comms. I suppose really good examples of where email management comes into play a little bit, as well as how to integrate your systems and how to file and find important emails within 3 clicks. Now, Tom's going to cover point 5, which we're going to show you how to file and find emails within 3 clicks, and we'll kind of go from there. If there's any questions at all, please just use the chat window, and we'll try and respond to them as we go through. There may be some which we kind of cover off at the end, but hopefully today is a mixture of using some industry research to give you an idea of industry trends and topical themes across across the sort of remote working world, and then another sort of 50% talking through, I suppose, ways to address and solve challenges within your own business. If anyone's got any comment they want to put in the chat around how you currently organize email, love to hear different examples of how people are organizing email. There's lots of sort of different ways and different solutions. So just feel free to put that in there. I think it's good to share ideas. So in terms of why does email matter? So I think when Microsoft Teams first was introduced, and probably if we go back even 10 years ago when common data environments and that sort of thing first came about, everyone thought, well, that's gonna, this tool is going to replace email. And we're just going to do everything through Teams, or we're just going to do everything through 4Projects or Aconex or some, something, Project Portal, Dropbox, for example. We're going to, that's going to replace email, and we're just going to use these portals to chat, and everyone's just going to use the sort of chat messaging features. And what we're seeing here is that actually, the way we use email is changing rather than it being replaced. So Teams has probably replaced the types of emails which might have been more informal, like I don't know, happy birthday, or that sort of thing. But it's increasingly becoming the letter of today. I'm sure nobody here sends faxes. Again, feel free to let me know if you do. So what we're seeing is that emails becoming the kind of most formal form of communication on projects and with clients, and it's the one thing which everyone manages slightly differently. So even in a company across 10 employees, for example, it's pretty likely that there's going to be 7 or 8 or 9 different ways to organizing an inbox and filing the information. But what's kind of critical is that when someone wants a record of a conversation, and if they ever think they're going to need to go back and find something, they're putting that in email. I think we're going to run a poll shortly to ask to kind of get some feedback on this, but one thing I suppose to think about is just whether you think you're sending more email than you were or less, because I think most people feel like they're sending more. Tools like Teams have definitely added another dimension to how we communicate, even though the volumes are increasing. And I think really that's just because things like Teams, things like email, things like WhatsApp don't replace one another. They just mean we get more communication and there's more places to go and find something, rather than things getting kind of rather than things being replaced necessarily. Generally speaking, customer, supplier, and client and project information all sits within email. So if you're communicating with the external world, and people find it more and more challenging when to kind of stay productive and on top of their inbox effectively. So what I'm going to do is just go on to the next slide here. So in terms of I suppose, the importance of managing your inbox in the post-pandemic world, how has the role of email changed since how has the role of email evolved in the kind of anywhere, any place workplace? What collaboration challenges can better email management resolve, and are we sending more now than ever before? And this is where we've used some research to see that 9 out of 10 people are using email to communicate with clients. I think that's pretty unsurprising, as well as 1/3 of respondents spending at least an hour a day, and 70% believe it's the biggest productivity drain on their own workforce. So that's probably kind of unsurprising. I'm not sure how people feel at the end of the week when it comes to trying to organize them. But most people we see have an inbox which is kind of overloaded with information, and it represents a challenge to kind of stay on top of it. So the final one here is just that 73% of respondents say that too much time is wasted trying to find emails as well, and 38% believe it's not very easy to find information in your inbox. Probably one thing I'd think about is if you're working with a client or on a case or with a project, then it's normally quite important to see everything relating to that client or everything relating to that particular project, and it's quite difficult to do so if you've only got information into your inbox. Now, I think most people I speak to only have access to the emails in their inbox rather than sort of more broadly, but interested to hear in the chat if anyone, if anyone's kind of heard anything. Sorry, if anyone kind of has, I suppose, an alternative way of dealing with this really. Tom, I'm not sure if you've got any kind of comment on that at all.
No, to be honest, just echo kind of the importance of filing emails, kind of what you were talking about there, Jacob.
Sure. And you speak to lots of you work with lots of businesses yourself. Have you do you think this has become more or less relevant in the sort of post-pandemic world?
Yeah, no, I think it kind of depends business to business. Of course, some people found it quite easy to kind of pick everything up out of the office and go back, everyone working remotely, but it definitely echoes the importance of communicating between people when you're out of the office, because you can't just shout across to someone at the opposite desk to you, because it's not as easy to do that anymore.
Sure. Okay. So one of the things in here I've just added in a bit of information, which is that 1/3 of respondents, 1/3 of people in a business spend at least 1 hour a day. So it's equivalent to kind of 1 working day a week. I don't know if anyone thinks that's a lot or not enough, more if you more or less than that. But that's definitely something which is, I suppose, a real problem for any business, particularly if you're a professional services business where time literally equals money. So I wanted to launch a poll here to just understand if your use of email itself has increased or decreased since the start of the pandemic. So if you could just tick the kind of responses, or whether it's significantly, somewhat, or not at all. Some interesting results. So we've got a couple more coming in. We've got around 50% think that your level of email is increased somewhat. Sorry, 60% feel that your use of email has increased. If I just end polling and share that, you should all be able to see that on your screen. Let me know in the chat if you can't. But yeah, we've got so there's only 3% of attendees who feel that the use of email hasn't increased. I don't know if that's because you're using it a lot before already, and there's literally no way of getting it, any more or less emails in and out. But yeah, the majority of people are relying on email more and more, and the use of it is increasing. Now, if anyone here has got like an inbox with nothing in it at the moment, again, sort of, it's very much stand to be corrected. So if I stop sharing the results, we'll see that move on. So in terms of some of the challenges we see, we're going to go through a couple of examples, but just before doing that, I think one of the things which has become really relevant is for many industries, kind of trying to reset and get stuff done in the kind of current environment's quite difficult. And what we are seeing is obviously projects being delayed, disputes generally on the rise, and the need to track and maintain an audit trail of what's been agreed and who said what is quite really becoming more and more important. I don't know if that's because there's less common sense around in those kind of things, or if just because naturally it's a really challenging time and there's a rise in disputes, whether it's related to payment, scope, or whatever it is. But there's quite a big responsibility placed on staff to manage commercially sensitive information in a responsible way. So you may have, I'm sure some people on here may have some colleagues who, I don't know, if you look at their inbox, you think, well, there's several hundred items there, which we, in a court of law or in a difficult conversation, we're probably going to need to rely on. And it's sort of a question is, how much can I rely on someone to make sure that's filed, retrievable, and instantly accessible, particularly if they leave the business, which unfortunately, obviously, is arguably more relevant now than ever. So one of the things which I was interested to learn was just really, I suppose, kind of how, if anyone's has thought up any or is being proactive about this in terms of a risk management and mitigation strategy, because we see lots of businesses in different industries really trying to take a proactive approach to risk, and almost thinking, well, at the start of a project we're going to have these protocols, you're going to file all your emails here, they're going to be called this, and we're going to spot check and audit if that's actually happening, because we know at some point in the future we might need to rely on this stuff. In terms of, I was going to go through a couple of examples now, and I'm hoping some of these are relevant to yourselves. Certainly from some of the research we've done, they are. So one example, it could be a company or even a person could be a company's going through a period of high staff turnover, and they struggle to recover agreements made by staff in email. So this is really when employees leave, thinking, what have they promised to do on a to clients? Kind of what responsibilities have they what responsibilities do we now have to fulfill, which previous staff members maybe made, and it's quite difficult to really understand that without having access to information. I don't know if anyone or you've ever worked in a business when a colleague's left and it's left you in the lurch a little bit, but I suppose this example is hopefully speaking to that. How we address that at Mail Manager in terms of a solution is we allow all emails on a project to be stored centrally and accessible by everyone on a project. So we believe fundamentally that you should be able to access all emails relating to a project within 3 clicks. We don't think you should have to go and chase people or ask people to forward messages or kind of inherit someone's just archaic inbox, because it's always going to be archaic. We think that when someone leaves the business, it should, in terms of a record of what they've said and who they've said it to and where their information is filed, that should just be kind of business as usual, really. And we've got a really good example coming up of where that's been the case. In terms of sharing information, another example is a company B had trouble sharing information across the business, and different departments might be working on a project or working with a client, but they're relying on staff forwarding or CCing colleagues into to correspondence, which can lead to a lot of duplication. Directors kind of copied into long email chains and they generally don't read them, which means it doesn't really fulfill the purpose. Now, how we address that scenario is we think it's important that when it comes to email management, that you discuss that across the company and you discuss a way of managing email across the business. And if you implement a system, everyone who's sending or receiving emails in and out of a business is included in that. I think the days of kind of having one or two people keeping an audit trail on a project are long gone. You kind of need everyone to be as organized as your most organized project manager, for example, which is what we kind of seek to address. And how we do that is we have a solution which can be implemented overnight. Why is that important? Because literally tomorrow, all of your staff could be filing emails in a consistent way rather than kind of organizing them in their own way, which, I don't want to say everyone does that, but I think it's sort of true to say that a lot do. I'm just checking if there's any other polls for me to run. I don't believe there is, so I'll move on to company C. So this is really relevant. I think this has been relevant even before the pandemic started, which is businesses generally have requirements to retain access to project information for 13 years. Now, this might be for quality management purposes. It might be, in terms of a kind of ISO. But what's really difficult, again, is whenever there's any element of people moving on, changing projects, or leaving a business, there's normally no single record of emails against one project. If there's a problem on a project, a company in this example would probably go back and say, well, who are the 5 people working on that job? Right, let's go into all of their inboxes, and now let's try and type in the job's name to see what's been agreed and bring up all of the information. Obviously, as soon as you're then relying on people calling emails, something consistent, which is probably even less likely than people filing them consistently. So Mail Manager's kind of solution, if any businesses on here have experienced that problem, our solution to that is to implement some machine learning which helps automate the process of filing emails, so people file without thinking about it, but importantly that your record isn't someone's inbox, your record is a project file. So like at the moment, some of you may have a drawings file, for example, a documents file, an images file. We believe you should have an emails file, which is a record of everything which has been discussed on that particular client or on that particular project. In terms of how to kind of, I suppose this builds onto the next point really, which is that most businesses we speak to, and most businesses surveyed, I think there's around 1,000 surveyed, are typically pretty good at storing documents. They have a place to file documents. Their invoices are recorded. If a payment's being chased up or something, or a formal letter's being sent, that's generally recorded. If you maintain a drawings register, that's generally recorded. But emails is a bit like the neglected sort of soul of information management. Why is that relevant? Because really what it means is you've got incomplete document management, and some of the challenges or problems which come up from that are an incomplete audit trail. So if you've ever had a QA assessor kind of bring up issues on a project or errors, then I think that's pretty relevant. There's a lot of rework goes on. I think there's a huge billions of pounds spent every year, certainly from the construction industry, on the amount of rework which is done, which is basically just I can't remember what we've agreed, so let's just have this meeting again to discuss what we've agreed and then obviously carry out the work. I think disputes are very relevant, and I don't just mean disputes when it comes to I'm going to end up in court, but everyday conversations, which is like when someone starts playing the kind of blame game, who has the best records generally wins that debate. You can't really rely on what people remember. And I think productivity, I think at the moment, everyone feels seriously overwhelmed with the amount of communication they get. And it's important to give employees tools to allow them to get some control over their comms. I think, I can certainly relate to that in terms of the volume of emails you get, but also the volume of Teams messages you get, the volume of WhatsApp messages you get, and we lack tools to get any sense of control, and that's kind of what Mail Manager seeks to address. I'm conscious I've been talking a lot, so in our survey, what we've got is 87% believe better email management is essential, delivering good records management. So really that you can't have good record management if you don't have a good email management policy and a good solution to it, because again, lots of businesses have a policy, but then it's pretty difficult to track if people are following that. And then around over 8 to 10 people believe that poor email management could have significant consequences for their business. So in terms of integrating email into document management, at Mail Manager, we believe we should plug email into your existing infrastructure. So if anyone here is using a file server or SharePoint or Teams or Procore, we believe email should just be plugged into whatever is your sort of corporate communication, corporate document storage solution, really. And SharePoint and Procore are two obviously very, very common ones, which we integrate into as well as others. So if I just move on here, this is probably I'm going to do two more slides. So this is, I think, hopefully quite relevant to a lot of you on the webinar. That a lot of businesses we speak to have silos of information dotted around their business. So, and if you think about if there's a dispute or a problem on a project, where am I going to go to get information about a particular project? And I'm going to have some images and some photos stored somewhere, maybe on people's phones as well. I'm going to have a job costing system to track the timesheets and resource planning and that sort of thing. I'm probably going to have some documents on a server. Maybe going to have some in SharePoint or a kind of common data environment, third-party document storage solution. And I'm going to have email. And if I've got 4 or 5 people on a project, I'm going to have 4 or 5 further silos. And what we seek to do is to combine your project information into one place, because email is generally the most disparate kind of form of communication in that anyway. So what I'm going to do is talk about how we've addressed that and how we do it, really. So around 10 years ago, Arup had a massive challenge in their business relating to email, which was affecting 2 groups of people. One was directors who felt that, when it comes to being able to argue our case and defend actions we've taken, it's really difficult to have a consistent level of confidence in our ability to retrieve information quickly. And I think a lot of people feel they can retrieve information, but for us it was really important that it was quickly. It was when we were on the phone to a client, or it was the day somebody left, or it was when I was in a meeting with someone. I need to be able to see what we've agreed. I can't go and ask someone to forward me that, or I can't try and remember where I've put it. I need to be able to find it. The other category was fee earners. So fee earners were getting increasingly frustrated at how much time they were spending searching or chasing for information, and just generally feeling like they're in a sort of communication overloaded state. So we thought, imagine if project teams could find any email on any project in seconds without wasting time filing. So I think there's probably lots of people here who have maybe looked into things like document and email management before, and I don't blame you for not really doing anything about it. I think the majority of solutions we saw were 6-figure investments, which was offered a sledgehammer to crack a nut, and would just result in another wasted IT investment where we're just having to persuade and force everyone to use something. So we wanted something which staff could use almost without thinking about it and could be switched on overnight. Now, as Mail Manager started to, I suppose, as people were working within Arup and started to move around to different businesses, they wanted to take Mail Manager with them. So Arup thought, hang on a minute, I'm sure email is relevant to pretty much every business who works, has got more than 1 or 2 people in it. So they decided to create Mail Manager as a business, which is kind of what we're going to talk about shortly. And in the last three years, we've just seen a massive increase in demand and a surge really in businesses taking email management seriously. In terms of the challenges we solve, these are some of the key problems. We're not going to talk to you lots about the product today. I don't think it's that important, like every button and feature and every single thing Mail Manager does. But what I do think is important is that you relate or experience some level of headache, discomfort to email management. That's probably a good opportunity to bring in Tom to talk for 5 or 10 minutes to show you practically how we address some of these. I'm just going to go to the chat feature to see if there's any questions at all. So yeah, a couple of questions come in. So Tom, if you start sharing, you should be able to take over. So Nikki Della Rocca, hi Nikki, can Mail Manager get rid of repeat emails? So I think that's a really good question. Thank you for it. I think that relates to kind of maybe an email chain of correspondence, where you have emails going backwards and forwards 30 times. And the answer to that is that in the search of Mail Manager, you'll be presented with the most recent email in that trail, and you can scroll down to see what's been discussed. But in the actual product itself, the solution itself, we think it's really important that you have a finite an audit trail of every record which has come in or gone out of the business. So in the product, you'll have a record of every email, but in the search, you'll see the most recent one. Tom.
Thank you very much, Jacob. Yes, so I've come into my inbox here. Mail Manager sits in the ribbon of your Outlook and is found by these 3 buttons at the top and these further 3 buttons down the side. Now, what Jacob kind of mentioned before, your emails get held centrally, and they'll be stored in places such as your file server, SharePoint, Procore, ProjectWise. I guess the point of Mail Manager is that it fits into your own environment, so you retain control of your own data. So there are a few different ways that Mail Manager will help you file your emails. So underneath your inbox, you can see that there are these subfolders, similar to what a lot of people have set up at the moment. Now, these are like drop folders. So if I was to drag an email into one of them, it would actually take it straight out my inbox and put it onto your server or into SharePoint, and therefore would be immediately searchable by everyone using Mail Manager search tool. However, that's still quite a manual process. And sometimes the reason why people don't file is because they get busy, they don't have the time, and they forget to do it. So what we've actually done is we wanted to create something that allowed people to file as they go. So when they action an email, something comes in to help them file it. So when I open up this email from Bradley about the Fitzroy project we're working on together, and I decide I don't actually need to reply to it, I'm just going to close it down. Here's where Mail Manager effectively intervenes, jumps in, and prompts me to file that email, which effectively turns filing emails into a bit of a habit. And what we've added is machine learning to effectively learn your behaviors and automate and make the process as seamless as possible. So 9 times out of 10, Mail Manager will predict that email right, tells you where it should be filed. So all it takes is just one extra click to file that email away, for it to be taken out of your inbox, and for it to be sent to the server, so everybody has the ability to search for that using the Mail Manager search tool. It's also sent to a subfolder in your inbox called filed items. The reason why it's there is so it is, you still have that functionality within your own Outlook. And that's how it kind of deals with incoming emails. How it deals with sent items is, we here at Mail Manager believe that sent items can be just as important as incoming emails. Is, say, for example, I want to reply to this email from Ben about the Acon project we're working on together. And all I want to say is just 2 words, just go ahead. And, that might not be immediately clear that that is an important email that should be saved. But I don't have to necessarily make that decision, because when I click send, Mail Manager, as you could probably guess, jumps in, intervenes tells me where I should file that email into the Acon project, as me and Ben work on a different project together. And at this point, all it takes is just another extra click to send and file that email for that email that I sent to be filed. But the difference is here is not only is the initial email I sent filed, but also the email I'm replying to. So they're actually filed together, giving you the full audit trail and both sides of the conversation filed in one go. There are a few other ways to file using Mail Manager. You can right-click an email and file it. You can also grab multiple emails and file them in one go. What we've done here is we've just tried to create, not a massive change to your business if you were to implement, because you still have all the abilities to file the way that you're currently doing at the moment. But we've added that prompt to really drive that consistency. Now, of course, the next part of the puzzle is how you'd go and find those emails. As going onto a file server, going to SharePoint isn't always the easiest to actually locate those emails down. So the Mail Manager search tool is really integral here. So the Mail Manager search tool is accessed through the magnifying glass in the ribbon. And when you open it, it brings up this window. Now, this is effectively, the biggest feature of Mail Manager, and potentially would be the biggest change to your business. I mean, what we have here is effectively a Google for emails across the company. I mean, as you can maybe see in the bottom left corner, it might be quite small. I have access to 460,000 emails. And, of course, these aren't just the emails I've been included on. This really gives you that overview of all emails on all projects that that are relevant to you in the company. So if I just give you a few examples of how you can search, the center search terms bar is like the Google search. What you put in through here will search through, the main body, subject line, sender, recipient, attachment name, anything you could possibly imagine being included on an email. So say you came to the search tool, you knew exactly what you were searching. You had a keyword in mind that was only going to be contained on 1 or 2 emails. You could put that into the enter search terms bar, such as the word Spy Master. And as you can see that in just under half a second, Mail Manager's filtered through that 460,000 emails to find just 2. This one within the subject line and this one with the word in the main body. really giving you that, ease of finding emails at your fingertips. However, the reason why the Mail Manager search tool is so powerful is because you have the ability to layer on all of these different filters that we have, on the left-hand side. So say you came to the search tool and you weren't exactly sure what you were looking for, but you had a few ideas in mind. So say you needed to find a quotation or maybe a contract. You could put the word contract into the enter search terms bar. And that's filtered it down to 25,000 emails. Now, of course, that's way too many to search through. So here's where you can layer on those filters. So you could use the date range slider. So if you knew the email was sent sometime in the last year or the last 6 months, you could put that up here, or even you had a much more specific time in mind, you could put that in as well. A cool feature about Mail Manager is you can filter whether or not the email contained an attachment. So you can put yes in here. It's down to 412. If I remembered a word in the attachment name or the attachment name in its entirety, I could put that in here as well. One of the biggest features of Mail Manager is that you're no longer just searching your own emails. You're searching your colleagues and the projects that you're working on. So a particular email I'm looking for wasn't sent by me, or I wasn't even CC'd into it, but I know that my colleague Hugh was. I couldn't remember if he sent it or just received it or was just CC'd in. So this between bar, I can just put his first name in, Hugh, and that's filtered it down to 80. Now, realistically, that's a big enough, going down to find exactly what I was looking for, but you can still add more things. So I know that Sohail was included as well, the finance manager, because the contract was included on that email. Now that I've found that email, I can right click it, open it straight back into Outlook, forward it on, reply to it, do whatever I kind of need to do once I've found that email. Now, you might have noticed that I haven't actually once filtered by project as well. And that's why, we want to file our emails by project, because it makes it much easier when searching. So this enter a location bar gives you the ability to do that. So say I needed to find all the emails on a certain project, say all the emails on the Gensler project, I could put Gensler into the search bar. And now that I'm here, I can get that really good overview of all the emails on a certain project. And another kind of benefit of Mail Manager is that when somebody leaves, or when somebody's on holiday, you don't have to catch up with them to find an email. You can come into the Mail Manager search tool, and my colleague Georgina, she was the account manager for Gensler, but she left about a couple of years ago. And if I put her name into the between bar, if I can spell, then that brings up the 34 emails, going back a year or two, still within Mail Manager, still having the ability to search for them, really giving you that, that peace of mind that all emails that are being sent and received at the company are kept in one central place that are really easily searchable. I suppose that kind of gives you the best overview of the system. Pass it back over to you, Jacob.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you very much. So let me just go and share my screen quickly. So I'm going to stop sharing your screen and should start sharing mine. So I suppose to conclude, there's a couple of questions come in. Here's some of the businesses who use Mail Manager. I think they really do vary. We've got businesses like Gensler, one of the largest architects in the world, using Mail Manager because they really rely on strong levels of compliance across the firm. But then we've also got businesses like Ardent, I think they're kind of 10 to 20 employees. And the reason why a small business implements Mail Manager is that it's a cost-effective solution to implement, and you don't need to rely on an IT department to get it set up, which is important. So we think businesses should be able to implement solutions which your staff actually want to use, and you don't need to be a technical expert to be able to set them up. So that's I suppose just to provide a little bit of background. In terms of takeaways, I think there's a email and document management benchmark report which really does get responses, has had responses from a range of different kind of sectors. But I think a couple of takeaways are that we're more reliant on email than ever before, particularly when it comes to formal communication and like thinking, well, if I get in trouble or if I have a problem, where am I going to have to go to sort of try and explain or provide a picture as to what's happened? Email is probably going to be there, but it's the one thing which everyone does differently. So at the very least, one thing to take away, I think, from today is to talk to your colleagues about how they're organising email. And if you're working on a common topic, whether it be a project, a client, a case, whatever it is, discuss a uniform way of managing email, because if you do it up front, rather than, I suppose it's a much better approach than just assuming and hoping everything's going to go okay, and you're never going to need to retrieve any of it. So there's a link there, which I'll put in the chat window. So let me just do that now. I'll put that in the Zoom chat so anyone can go through and download that. I'd recommend it, and then I'll just take some questions now. So Tom, I'll direct some of these to you. So could you rate a question from Rachel? Could you run through the private and confidential filing setup? Yeah, really good question, Rachel. So sort of different types of confidential. There's some emails which you'll want to just file and store yourself, which is completely okay. There's a personal filing location to do that. It's on your C drive, your OneDrive, whatever you use, and you're the only person who can access that. There's also a send only option as well if you literally just don't want to file it anywhere. But then there may be some emails which are confidential, but the directors are allowed to see them, like HR or something, but other people can't. And it's important, therefore, that Mail Manager looks at the permissions you already have and just picks up on those. Really good question. Hugh, question from Hugh. Don't you see Teams replacing the need for the central store? I'd say no, just because it's a very different type of communication. I think Teams would be the sort of the be all and end all to every type of communication if everyone was using it. Then obviously in your business people use it, but outside your business they use their own version of Teams, and we still need to find a way of communicating with each other externally through a means which is kind of easily filed and easily retrievable. So Teams has become a different form of communication rather than a replacement as such. One question coming here saying from Anna, I think the duplicate question was in relation to two people copied in on an email and they both file it. We have a huge problem with this as it increases the storage. Yeah, really good question, Anna. So yeah, sorry if I didn't answer that well. So if two people file the same email to a project or to a client, then Mail Manager will just automatically delete the duplicate copies of an email and an attachment, and you'll only have one copy of that. So that's helpful when it comes to reducing storage, because generally speaking, duplication accounts for around 1/3 of storage costs. Questions come in with Q&A. Thomas Potter, is one able to set up subfolders within a Kiffin project? Yeah, absolutely. So Mail Manager will plug into your existing filing structure. I think the thing to think about there is just how many subfolders to have, because generally people are using the search, you should only really need 1, 2, or 3. You shouldn't really, you shouldn't need any more than that. The reason for that is that when it comes to filing, you want to give people one choice to file things or 2 choices to file things. If you give people 10 choices, they probably will get stuff wrong, I would have thought, just because we're all busy. Okay, final call for questions. I'm just going to scroll up to see if there's any others. I don't think there is, unless I'm oh, hang on. Yeah, I don't think there is. So there's a question here from Chris, which says, how does Mail Manager deal with old emails? Yeah, really good question, Chris. So there's a bulk filing solution which can allow you to copy messages over in a folder format if they're already in one, or you can just file thousands of emails in one go, and the search will work through them. So that's why we think this is a genuine kind of overnight solution to anyone who's experienced some level of email headache. So yeah, anyway, that probably draws things to a close nicely. Thank you very much, everyone, for taking time to join. I appreciate there's lots of these webinars and lots of things which you can attend and get sent messages about. So really appreciate you taking out the time to to attend ours. Please download the email and document management usage benchmark report, and I'm sure we'll be kind of following up with you and speaking to you soon. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jacob, and thank you everyone for joining as well.